Hi all, it's me again, Aki from Bringforth, and this will once again be a graphic update. So if you are squeamish or have a hard time listening to triggering material, then please skip. And I'd like to talk about the sexual abuse that happened to me in my childhood, and this may be the first video that I have made about this. This will be set 12 part 2, I believe, could be wrong. And it's kind of hard to talk about even now. It's been about 20 years, actually close to 30 years. And the story is, I was lying in my bed. My mother was reading me a bedtime story. It could have been my father, I don't remember. And my brother walked in the door and stood there, and he said that he could read me a bedtime story. And I was really hyped because he'd never been kind to me, so I was excited to have him read the story. And he got to the chair next to me, and my parent, mother or father, I think it was my mother, because my father didn't read a lot of these stories, but it could have been my father. And my parent left the room and went downstairs. And he climbed in the bed with me, which at that point I immediately got suspicious that something bad was going to happen. And he pulled his pants down and told me to grab his dick, or penis in common language. And at that point I hadn't ever masturbated myself, ever. So I had no idea what was happening. And he told me to squeeze it, and basically he told me to jerk him off. He instructed me to make the motion. And I did. I remember him being there. And I remember I still kind of feel, but not as much. It was in the past a very strong feeling of having his sperm on my hand. I could feel it for decades. It was really annoying, and every time I had a sexual encounter I kept thinking about it. So after a while he got out of bed, and I do believe my father walked in, and he was out of bed at that point. And I may have at that point told my father what happened. I still don't remember exactly, but I do have the memory of telling my father what happened and my brother being spanked for it, but I don't remember for sure. I do remember that after the event he walked into my room again and said that it's my fault as in your fault as much as it is my fault as in his fault. To which I replied with basically nothing, and I was leaning against the corner of the room in my bed. I was lying down and I felt like I wanted to die. And I basically asked for all the things to come down. That was something that I felt that we should basically bring down the good spirits and tell them that what happened. I felt that as a child that they should all come down. You know, my hopes and dreams and such, that they should all come down now, so that nobody gets stuck. He's never admitted it, and he's never apologized for it. And when I went to prison, I wrote letters to all my family members where I finally discussed this in public. And my mother apologized, my father flat out denied anything had happened, and my brother never picked up his letter, so there's that. I first talked about this when I read from a newspaper article about this women's rights organization responding to this writer about a rape case, and the person, the author, the help lady, put her own email address there, and I sent an email to her telling what had happened, and she responded and was very kind. And that was the first time I ever told anybody. It was about 10 years afterward. And it's now closer to 30 years than 20 years. I was perhaps 9. So I occasionally still get messages from the spirit world and people I know that he hasn't shown any kind of public remorse. He consistently continues to believe, as far as I can tell, that it was my choice as well as it was his. He hasn't taken any kind of responsibility for his actions. This kind of ties in with the earlier point that psychopaths are actually easy to detect. They don't admit remorse, so they are kind of easy to spot. So that's my past. I am able to enjoy sex, thank God. And I no longer get the sense, the memory of what it felt like, but I do feel like I'm in a fog. And I can still tell that I'm in the trauma mindset. So it'll take a long time. It basically destroys your life. So to be hyped that somebody is finally, who's always been mean to you, gonna be nice to you, and then getting punched for it. This is the same person who has punched me in the stomach so hard that I jumped off my feet. He was, when I came home one day with a friend, he opened the door and closed it in front of my face, like, as a kind of joke, and he turned around and walked head first into the door frame, and I started laughing, and he punched me in the stomach so hard that my feet lifted from the ground. So anyway, that's my brother, and I to this day don't think he's human. He's not all in. His mind is gone. He should be put in a psych ward and kept there for the rest of time. So anyway, that's that story.